Remember what I said? I said everything in life answers to principles, right? The first principle of democracy is that it has to be by the people. And if you go by that analogy, the primary that was conducted in Taraba State, which the then sitting governor won, had the imprimatur of the people of Taraba State. So, you know, on that basis alone, Darius Ishaku doesn't seem to me to be qualified to even be in the election. So if you order, to answer your question, if you order a fresh election, I think you go back to PDP, of course. This should be a wake-up call to them. They should go back to drawing board and say, what is the wish of the people of Taraba State? Because that's what we seem to forget in all of this, is that we don't seem to want to respect the wishes of the people in this country. If we are ready to, if we are serious about practicing democracy, it has to be the wish of the people that has to prevail. And for whatever reason, the people of Taraba State wanted the guy. But PDP and some of the heavy hitters said, we don't want this guy, and they went over to Abuja. So you have to order fresh elections, kick Darius. From my standpoint, Darius is out entirely. So you go back to drawing board and say, what is it that the people of Taraba State really want? And
wait, is it that he is out? Sorry to interrupt you. Is it that he is out? But even if he's out, the principle that says, look, it is the political parties that participate in elections, and they participate by nominating a candidate. So if he was not the person who, if you say he's out, what happens to the second person who ran, who turned up second in that primary?
Well, because that's what the senior advocate was saying. And remember, I said I tend to agree with him. If the issue is qualification, then the second person, I believe you're talking about Aisha?
PDP. No,
oh, in PDP.
Yeah. About their primaries.
Yes, about their
primaries. If you say Darius Ishaku is out, as a candidate,
yes,
does it speak to maybe who is the second person, or is the party here we're talking about?
No, you know, when you're talking about political party, if we're talking about democracy, I'd like to go back to that analogy, because this is about principles. Political party is not, you can't divulge it from what the people want. And what I'm saying is that this guy, who was the former sitting governor, is not even second, he was first. He was first in line, because this is the guy that the people of Taraba State wanted in the first place. But because some people in Taraba State, didn't think he was the right guy, they moved to Abuja and did this thing, and that's why we're here. So in my view, he is the guy who is the rightful nominee to have run for the governorship.
I'm just curious though, what's the place of prayers? Because in an election petitions tribunal, you'll bring the basis of your grievance, and then you'll also make certain prayers to the court. If, for instance, what ought to have been done, just thinking out loud, if what ought to have been done was nullify the elections and call fresh ones, well, the prayer of the candidate who was aggrieved is that you should declare me winner. What is the place of prayers in an election petition, or even in any court matter at that?
Well, I think by prayer you mean legal prayer. Okay, not spiritual prayer. It's very important. That's the challenge that, my guy, I think his name was Omar or something. That's the challenge he faced, because he was not the petitioner in this case. So prayer is important because there are procedures you have to follow. For instance, if you didn't plead if you didn't plead the matter, you can't get that relief. So that's the place of prayer. But like I said, this is a judicial overreach. So there's a lot of things that sometimes you tweak these things. The way I look at law is that it's never a straight line. If you're at point A and you want to get to point B, you navigate things and you get to that point.
Can you ask for a prayer that doesn't exactly go with a particular decision, for instance?
No, you cannot. But then I will ask you, the question becomes, like I said, if you look at this from the letter of the law, this ruling is, was made by incurium. It was made in error. Yeah. So it's a case of judicial activism, like I keep saying.
Wait. Is that to say that the tribunal granted a prayer that they didn't seek?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that because qualification, even though it's not one of the four grounds to come before the court to challenge an election petition. It fits into the party nomination process. So it's one of the prayers. Whether I haven't read this judgment, to be honest with you, whether Aisha made this prayer, I don't know. But like I said, I think, let me tell you what I think. I think what the court is trying to do here is that, because if you go into jurisprudence, the end of a legal system is to find truth and then enforce justice. So I think that's what the court is trying to do here, or the tribunal is trying to do here. So if that is the case, at what point does jurisprudence trump procedure, in this case prayer? That's up to the court to decide. But what I do know is that, if you look at government, there are three arms, right? You have the legislature, you have the executive, and then you have the judiciary. Most people have the view that the judiciary is supposed to be the one that's the gatekeeper, keep every other person in check. So when it appears as here that the PDP as a political party, which is the executive, is engaging in this kind of impunity that brought us into this mess, then the court is, under the doctrine of judicial activism, if you will, is allowed to come in and make this kind of ruling.
If this stands, or if it's upheld, what kind of implication does it have on electoral jurisprudence?
If what is upheld?
If this judgment is upheld in appeal or Supreme Court?
Well, it becomes another case like the Amechi case, which was not really grounded in law, but like I said, it's judicial activism. I don't have a problem with it because, like I said, to outlaw slavery in America, because you have to understand slavery was sanctioned by law. It was in the U.S. Constitution. Blacks were considered as not fully humans, and so, to get to the point where everybody is truly equal in America, the court had to come in and engage in this kind of activism and, to bring about... So law is dynamic, law is dynamic. Constitutional law, those of us who share the view that it is always evolving, is so dynamic that you keep making changes until you like I said, the end has to be to find truth and enforce justice. And what is the truth here, I keep saying, is that there was a guy in Taraba who was a sitting governor who ought to have won the primaries, and some people didn't like him, and that's why we're here.
So quickly, what do you make of INEC as the umpire's testimony? If they knew that truly there wasn't a valid primaries held by the political party, if they truly believed that at the start, why did they go ahead to print a ballot for the party and went ahead to include the party in that particular election?
Well, that's a good question and one for INEC to answer. What I know is that in this country, part of the problem we have as a country is that we don't have strong institutions. That's some of the biggest problems we have in this country. We do not have strong institutions, and that's why certain individuals are able to, overpower every other person. Why would INEC allow that? I think the senior advocate was referring to Section 87 of the Constitution, where INEC may or may not participate in the nomination process. So it's an iffy case. But then when you get to post-election and you're at the tribunal, then INEC has to come in and say what they observed. And in this case, I think the fact is that they testified that they are not aware that this primary nomination process ever took place.
All right, Mr. Phillip Okey-Igwe, a legal practitioner, thank you for your thoughts today.
Thank you very much.
Well, we'll have another one coming on in just a moment, so just hang on. We'll be back.